Well, Intel. You've fallen off a lot recently, and quite frankly, I don't know how you're going to get through it because there's a lot going on, so we need to talk about this. So, first of all, the Ryzen 7 9800 X3D. X3D Vcache has been a game changer for gaming, and it's really curb stomped Intel's performance in like their price to performance ratio. So, let's talk about that first. Now, the 9800 X3D has recently been crowned the king of gaming. It's got 205 FPS on average, as you can see from hardware and box, and even the 7800 X3D still remains a pretty good example of what CPUs can do with 3D Vcache. And then you look down here and you've got Intel. 162 FPS on average across 14 games, compared to 205. That's a pretty big difference. And I was looking at this graph and I was going, hang on, where's the 285K? But it's only when you go down past the 9950X, down past the 9700X, down past the 7700X, that you find the Ultra 9 285K. 154 FPS on average across 14 games, compared to 205. That's about 30% more performance from the 9800 X3D, and it's really embarrassing that they're losing to a part that was released 4 years ago and it costs a whole lot less. Now, yes, I will admit that the 285K is better at productivity. If we just scroll up here, you'll see that yes, the 285K is better in some aspects. But the 9800 X3D isn't far behind, albeit. Especially with the higher clock speed, it's actually a pretty good CPU for productivity performance. Corona 10, you can see it's up there with the 9950X, number one in the Blender Open Data Test. Yeah, it's not bad for productivity. So that would be the only reason that you would buy the 285K. I'm still trying to not call it the 14900K. So yeah, Intel's losing the performance, and then 9900K days of reigning don't really exist anymore, and they can't really live on that edge of bleeding performance, and they can't rest on their laurels to get people to buy them just because it's Intel. Just because it's Intel doesn't mean that AMD make a bad product. In fact, it means they probably make a better product because they're more so focused on that lower end market with more price performance in mind. But if we ignore that, let's look at the news side of things in the management area. Pat Gelsinger is forced out as Bezos backs Nvidia rival. That doesn't matter. But Pat Gelsinger has been forced out of running the company, sort of by the board of directors. So what's happened is the company's sort of fallen off as he's been in office because he's an engineer. He's not a financial guy. He's an engineer, ex-engineer of Intel, who came, went, and then came back, and then now he's leaving again, only because the company's sort of fallen off and the board of directors don't really want him there. So Intel's been left without a CEO, and currently they've got two CEOs, or like co-CEOs managing it, both with financial and business backgrounds. So we'll see how that goes. But then if we just look at the share price, that sort of tells you about the confidence of people and investors and how many products they're going to be releasing. Because if we look in 2023, yeah, it was actually not a bad share price, $50 US, and then we've plummeted all the way down here to 20. That's more than half the price of what a share used to cost. So if you're feeling lucky, maybe invest here, or it could just keep plummeting, which I wouldn't see past it, to be honest. Even then, we look at the Steam hardware survey. People are not using Intel as much. So in June 2023, you've got 67.4%, and it's dropped to 63.3% over a year. And that's just going up and up and up. And you can see AMD is gaining a lot of ground here. So yeah, definitely something nice to see from AMD. I just hope that they don't sort of monopolize the industry. I do want Intel to have some competition. And then if we look at retail stores, like Scorptech in Australia, now these aren't US pricing, but you can see that they're really trying to sell these because they're not getting out the door. There's one 3-star review, no reviews for the others, and you can see that they're saving $50, save 50, save 20. There's up to $50 off. But on top of that, you'll probably see that they're selling a bonus K68 mechanical keyboard from Corsair. Doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in the Core Ultra 5 245K. I don't know where Intel are at right now, and I don't think they can really dig themselves out of this. Their CPUs are just poor value in general right now. The Core Ultra 9 285K costs $1,100. Meanwhile, the 9800 X3D, even though it's out of stock, Costs $849, gets you far better performance. Yes, the ETA is on the 6th of the 1st, but if you can wait a month, then you'll be fine. You can even get a bundle deal. Like, AMD is just the better option. So with all that being said, how do I see Intel going forward? To be honest, I'm not sure. But I think Intel Arc and their new B580 series that they're releasing may give them some hope. Maybe they just stop making CPUs altogether. I know that's pretty stupid because they do make good CPUs. But maybe they shift away from gaming on CPUs, but more so to GPUs, because their performance is actually quite impressive. So Intel released or announced the other day their Intel Arc B580, which is releasing on the 12th of December, I think. And you can see that it's 24% faster than the A750 limited edition. So now that was the A750. Now what's interesting is that's kind of equivalent to like a 4070 class or 3070 class GPU, not in terms of performance, but in terms of the naming scheme. And this is a B580, like a tier below. So imagine that's like a Core i7, and that's like a Core i5. So what's interesting about this is it means that potentially, if we're getting 24% faster FPS on a B580, what does that mean about the B780 or the B770 or the B750? I don't know what they're going to call it yet, but it means that there could be some performance left in the tank for Intel to take market share. And it's quite interesting because across all these games, they've improved a lot. And you can see that it's 24% faster. Here are the specific numbers across different games, and you can see, yeah, they're beating them pretty much every time or getting pretty close on the low end. But on the high end, you're making some pretty big performance jumps. And this is thanks to a bunch of architecture differences. To be honest, I'm not going to talk about this. It's pretty boring, to be honest. And better ray tracing. Now, AMD, as we all know, don't really ray trace very well. But Intel's actually pretty good on the whole. And that might be a way into the market for them. Not that, you're going to be ray tracing on a B580. But it could be possible in the future. Now, one of the things they're really touting is performance per dollar. Now, the B580 is releasing with 12 gigs of VRAM for $250. The next echelon of graphics cards with 12 at least gigs of VRAM is the 6700 XT, and that's an old GPU. It's kind of going out of stock. And then you've got the 7600 XT, which is kind of just a bad value in general, or even though it's got 16 gigs of VRAM. But $250 for 12 gigs of VRAM is quite impressive. And then $220 is going to be the B570. Yeah, that's going to be the B570, and it's going to have 10 gigs of VRAM, which is still better than 8 gigs of VRAM. So AMD has to step up here, or they're going to let Intel take the lead. Nvidia not so much, because everyone still likes Nvidia because of ray tracing on the RTX 4060. But Intel really can take over AMD here. And I'm assuming they will eventually. So long as they can get their drivers underway, it should be actually not bad of a deal. So, Intel, my proposal to you. I suggest that you send me a bunch of CPUs or GPUs to test, just because I feel like, I'm pretty reputable as a guy. But also, I think your GPU division is actually stronger than your CPU, which is quite funny because it's like the opposite for AMD, because AMD's GPUs are just terrible. I mean, they're not terrible, but they're meh. And then their AMD CPUs are really, really strong. So I think you should focus more on the GPU, to be honest. Figure out what you're doing with your CPUs. Figure out what you're doing with your foundry business, first of all. And then you should be able to leverage that into a pretty strong company overall. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on it. Let me know yours down in the comments below. And as always, I'm TechBiz, and I'm out.